Good morning. It's great to be here. I'm going to just briefly introduce who we are. So I head up the consulting business, healthcare and wellbeing consulting business at Punter Southall, and Anna is our Director of Actuarial and Data Analytics. So what we're going to do today is briefly look at some of the REBA research, some of the insights, and look at the key steps to developing a bespoke health and wellbeing programme. And then I'm going to hand over to Anna, who's then going to talk about using data to understand key risk factors in your business and how to effectively measure the wellbeing programme that you're going to put in place. So let's just look at some of the research. This is the second year that we've partnered with REBA in completing the wellbeing research, which we're delighted to be involved in. And what's really interesting is that there's a growing interest in employer-funded wellbeing programmes, and quite a significant increase as well. There was an increase in respondents who have actually got a defined wellbeing strategy, and in fact that's moved from 29.8% to 45.2%. So that's actually quite a significant growth, and we've seen that in a lot of the discussions that we have with customers. What's interesting is that the actual effectiveness approach is lower, so only a quarter are actually measuring the effectiveness of their programme. We do actually expect to see that change quite a lot in the coming year or two, particularly as data analytics has a bigger role to play, because that will effectively help customers measure the effectiveness of their programme. The drivers as to why companies are actually doing these programs are broadly similar over the last couple of years. Engagement, culture, retention, and also productivity as being the key drivers behind all of that. So moving on, we've developed this over the last 18 months. This is what we call our wellbeing wheel. And we've put a lot of time and effort into the development of this, working with customers. And the key thing here is that well-being for us is not just about individuals. And what we've discovered working with customers is that it's very easy to focus on programs and initiatives that are focused on individuals. So things like initiatives and benefits that are plentiful in the market. But it's really important to look at also environment and culture. And these two are very much linked to the individual approach. We feel that you're going to limit your success and the impact of your wellbeing programme if these are not considered holistically. They should also be considered carefully when you're designing the actual programme that you're going to put in place. So let's just have a look at the key themes here. Culture. The tone from the top of the organisation is really crucial. The culture will identify what suits you and your business when it comes to your wellbeing programme, the way your management will lead that programme, the policies that you choose to adopt, and also the training and communication to your people around that programme. All are really important when designing a programme that's going to be bespoke for your organisation, because there is no such thing as an off-the-shelf wellbeing programme. Every company is different. It's also important that you really examine what you've got in your policies at the moment, because they may need revisiting. Some of them, particularly legacy policies, may not be fit for purpose for what you want to try and achieve going forward. So the tone from the top, as I said, is crucial. This shapes the underlying culture of your organisation. And it's really important you consider how you're perceived by not only your own people in the business, but also by your customers. Checking things like, do your business values actually represent the way you expect your people to behave in the business? What's the emotional contract that you have with your people? These things often get forgotten, and it's really important if you've got the time and the resource to really reflect on those and ensure that you're taking a very equitable and fair approach in the business. So moving on to environment. Environment really influences well-being, and this is an area that is really underestimated and can often be forgotten. Things like the layout of your building and your office environment, equipment that we use in our day-to-day jobs, the systems that we use in our day-to-day work, all the things that make us feel good about the company that we work for. And it's also about looking at the look and feel. Is it fitting with the values of our business and the way you want the customers to look at you? And don't forget home workers. Home workers are also part of the organisation, and look and feel for them is important. It's important also that you consider the demographic, the age groups that you're actually looking to engage with in your business, and there'll be a variety of age groups for many organisations, and also the work that they do. The sorts of things we talk to customers about in this area are things like access to water facilities, making sure that they're available, putting in showers in the office somewhere for those that actually do want to do some exercise, bike racks for those that want to cycle in, healthy options in the canteen, and also breakout areas, even if they're small breakout areas, just to encourage people to move away from their desk and take some time out from work. So you could just about see that image there. This is in fact our Red Hill office, which we renovated within the last year. Some of you in this room I know visited our old Red Hill office will remember it was a very tired building. We invested a lot of time and effort in the design of this environment, and we've seen a staggering improvement in the morale of our people in that office, and we've had some amazing feedback in the way in which we've built it and made it their space, and we've even got pop-art pictures of our people on walls. It's a much more fun environment, which we really wanted to generate. The key message here is that environment has a big impact on individuals, but a really, really good environment can have a really positive outcome for the business. So it's an area we really encourage you to look at. So then we come back to the individuals. This is all about awareness and knowledge, and making sure that the program that you put in place provides information to individuals that inform them to make better choices about their own health and well-being. It promotes a progressive behavioural change in the business, providing them with the relevant tools, the relevant information that's going to suit them in that culture. There's 4 key areas which are shown here. Plenty of initiatives in the marketplace to support all of those. There's a groundswell of opportunity there. Actually, the challenge is finding out which ones are right for your business. And don't forget the link, again, to culture and environment when you're making those choices. Let's go back to the research again. So just thinking about initiatives, what are the popular ones? Well, the most common, perhaps not surprising, are employee assistance programs, discounted gym membership, and health screening. And obviously the key thing to note here is if you look at the difference in the 2 years, is all of them are on the increase. So companies are offering more and more services in these areas. There are some rising stars also out of the research, significant increases in popularity for financial well-being, support for carers, and sleep, and awareness around sleep hygiene. In fact, in that particular area, the results show that it's set to double from 42% to 88% of organisations looking at some kind of sleep programme over the next 2 to 3 years. Support for carers also going to jump from 37% to 83%. And with many of us being in the sandwich generation, actually having access to the right support, right information and flexible working to help in those situations is really important. And of course, financial well-being, which is very topical at the moment, and solutions that enable people to easily understand tips to manage their own financial well-being. So let's just look at the steps to designing your well-being strategy. This isn't rocket science for us. It's simple, but it's important. The first thing is really understanding the purpose of the wellbeing programme. What are the aims and objectives of the organisation? What are the drivers that we talked about earlier? And also, what's the senior sponsorship for this? Because they have to back it and they have to be behind it. And this is a very important part of the process. Then it's about data and gathering your own data. Anna's going to pick up on this in a minute, so I'll leave her to explain that in more detail. Analysing the data, ensuring that it's an evidence-based approach for your own business, and that you're identifying trends and also gaps that need addressing. Technical problem, there we go. Solution. Once you've analysed the data, you're going to then devise a solution that's based on those findings, but also takes into account your budget, because you will have a budget, invariably it's a limited budget, what your priorities are as a business, and also how you might design a brand, potentially a wellbeing brand, and a communication strategy to support that. You then want to find resource to support and embed into the business, another key part of the process. And then, like any program, you have the review element. It's really important to measure what you can measure around data, whether it's employee survey data, policy data. And we recommend a dashboard, and we work with customers to build quite a simple dashboard that enables you to review regularly what's happening and what's not happening, so that you can refine your strategy on a regular basis and move it on. So for us, we believe strongly in the combination of not just wellbeing strategy, but also data analysis, and data is really key and can be very powerful. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Anna, who's going to talk us through that.
Okay, so now I'm going to take you on a bit of a whirlwind tour of the potential of using data in defining your strategy. As we know, companies are as unique as the employees who work for them, so there's definitely not one size fits all, either in designing that strategy and the approach you take, or the strategy itself. It's key to note here throughout this presentation, when I'm talking about data analytics, it's aggregated data analytics. We're not tracking individual people's behaviours. By understanding the diversity of your employees, both in terms of their demographics, so by that I mean things like age, gender, socioeconomic group, location, occupation, and also their engagement preferences, you can really build a strategy that will resonate with them and therefore have the most impact. So there's two ways we're looking at data. One, in defining your initial wellbeing strategy, and also in measuring its effectiveness. So looking at regular MI and reporting to continuously monitor the effectiveness of that programme and refresh it to keep it really relevant. So we're using data to uncover the actual challenges and concerns that you and your employees are facing, and we refer to these as risk factors. We look at risk factors in two different ways, from two different viewpoints, one from the employee and one from the employer, and you'll see some of them up there on the screen. The reason why we look at it in this way is that although they're driven by the same underlying factors and very interlinked, there is a differing perspective from how you view them. So an employee focusing on their own mental well-being is different from an employer looking at their absence rates. So the risk factors prevalent in your own employee base will depend on the aspects of the wellbeing wheel that Soraya mentioned, but also on the demographics of your employees. And as a workforce ages, some of those will become more prevalent, such as the chronic conditions and the impaired ill health. So understanding the 2 points of views really lets you formulate a robust communication and engagement strategy that should resonate with your employees and meet both yours and their objectives. And data and analytics will help us identify these risk factors so that the actual wellbeing strategy can be tailored to meet your needs. So what data sources can be used? So there's many and varied data sources, and they will be either numerical or descriptive. And it's by combining some of these together that we really get some powerful insight. So here are just a few examples, certainly not an exhaustive list. But what you look at will depend on the purpose that you've defined for building your wellbeing strategy, and also obviously the data available to you. So it's also important to consider when you look at data and the insight that you want to gain from it, do you need to look at your employee segments in different ways? For example, factory versus shop floor versus head office workers, or maybe even age segments, because they will be facing different risk factors, and they also will have preferences on communication, and not just that, probably different technologies in terms of how you can communicate. So for health statistics, we can look at a few different things. EAP, usage stats, health screenings, health data, as well as on-site kiosks. And the kiosk data, for example, is a really good way of getting a snapshot of your employee health. A point in time, but also if you repeat it, you can see trends over time. And with that, you can look at things like BMI, blood pressure, body fat content, and you compare those to national averages. For those of you who have not tried an on-site kiosk before, there's one on our stand today. Wellbeing people are here with one, so please do go and give it a try. The other thing you need to consider when you're looking at your driving your insight is the context in which you view your data, and look at both participation rates and also results. And it's important when you look at those participation rates in your wellbeing initiatives that you're considering not just the number of users or the percentage of engagement. You're looking at the demographic of who's actually engaging compared to the demographic of your employee base as a whole. It could be, say, for your company challenge, that it's only the currently really active who are already participating. And if you just take that on face value, you will get a skewed view of your health statistics. So I thought it was also worth commenting on how much data is enough, because that last slide could look daunting to some companies, especially if you're just starting out or you haven't got much data. And in reality, you can glean quite a lot of information just from understanding your employee demographics, so your age, gender, location, and things like that. When you combine that breakdown of your employee demographics with external data sources, such as national statistics on things like obesity rates, smoking, activity levels, you can already begin to see what risk factors may be affecting your employees. Add in other data sources that you may already have, such as insurance claims experience, be it PMI or protection, can validate that or differentiate the analysis that you're doing. And also you can look at getting other data sources. For example, you could consider employee questionnaires. The success of those will depend on where you are in your cultural journey, but do aim to keep them relevant and keep them short if you put them in place. So just in summary, combining the various data sources together really gives you a much more powerful, holistic view of your overall health and well-being. And you can look at both health snapshots, trends and correlations, and as Soraya said earlier, the gaps that you may have in your strategy. And we believe it's really key to combine both the wellbeing expertise and this data analysis to really see what's going on with your employees and understand what will really make an impact when you build your solutions. So going back to the REBA survey results, as Soraya mentioned, only just over a half of companies currently measure what they put in place as their wellbeing strategies. And those that do concentrate on three main things, which will be employee engagement levels, employee feedback, and participation rates in the initiatives. And this is great, but it could only tell you half the story. Quite often, the initiatives that are most popular with employees are not the same as the ones that have most impact on their health and well-being. So looking at increases in engagement score may not necessarily correspond to an improvement in overall health and well-being. So we advocate using health statistics as well as some of these other measures. So what do you need to consider when you're defining what you want to monitor going forward? Well, the first thing is start it in the design phase of your strategy. Don't wait till you've got your initiatives in place. The reason being is that when you think of data capture, you need to have that formulated up front so that you can start gathering the information you need. And those data capture methods will really define the completeness and quality of the data you end up with, and so the validity of the insight that you gain from it. Consider your audience. So who are you going to be reporting to? Is it board level? Is it senior management? And are you going to feed anything back to the employees? Because this will obviously affect your approach. Also important to note, before you engage third-party wellbeing product and service providers such as EAP or OC Health or health screenings, have that conversation up front in terms of what data that you want and how you want to monitor things going forward to see if those needs can be met. And finally, when you consider your results and interpreting those results, just make sure that you don't always take things on face value. There may be internal and external influences affecting it, such as restructures, or as I mentioned earlier, difference in the demographic of those taking part in your initiatives compared to your overall employee base. So in summary, every company is different, and the approach you take to build your strategy and that strategy itself should reflect this. You'll be at different points in your wellbeing journey, so consider where you are, both from a cultural and a wellbeing journey point of view. You have options regardless of the amount of data you have, because there's a load of great external studies out there that you can combine with what data you do have around your employee demographics. And consider not just the individual elements, but also your culture and environment, because without changing those, it's sometimes hard to impact the individual behaviours. Technical problem, hold on. And it's by creating this bespoke plan that really takes into account your underlying risk factors that you will gain the most impact. And again, just finally finishing off with, we really believe that combining the wellbeing expertise and this data analytics will give you a strong, enduring strategy. So Soraya and myself are around all day today, so if you did want to talk about anything further, please come and see us on our stand, and also please go and try out the kiosk if you want to. Thank you.